And there was a different group that said that all these things are no goal at all. Rather, the right purpose is to be involved only in prayer to Hashem Yisbarach. And to be a humble person and a lowly person. In other words, one should not deem anything of oneself. And they sought for themselves a prayer leader, and they made him a king over them. One will already understand by himself that all the aforementioned factions were all very mistaken and deluded in great foolishness. Each faction in their folly, through their foolish hypothesis and foolish deductions, only this last faction hit upon the proper truth. So fortunate they are. All this was related by one of the strong men before the prayer leader. And he went on to tell him that they, namely the warriors who were going with the warrior as mentioned, that they are from the faction of the men of limbs mentioned above. The faction that said that the main objective is only to cultivate oneself, to enlarge one's limbs, who had taken up as a king, or themselves a man of limbs, a large person, as mentioned. And the day came to pass, and a company of them were going along. In other words, many of the ample-limbed people were going together with the wagons in train, which are called ibis, bringing along food, drink, and other such things. Now, the world was certainly afraid of these large-limbed ones, for they were large and mighty men. Whoever encountered them was sure to step off the road. Meanwhile, as the camp of the ample-limbed was going along like that, approaching them from the opposite direction came a big warrior. And this was the warrior who goes with them now. And this warrior did not step off the road for them. And he went into the camp and dispersed them here and there. And the people of the camp were terrified of him. And he, the warrior, went inside among the aforementioned wagons, which trailed behind them, and ate up everything that was there. This was an extraordinary novelty to them, that he is so valiant that he has no fear of them. Whatsoever, and went right into their midst, and ate up all that was in the wagons. All that was on the wagons. So they promptly fell down before him, saying immediately, "Long live the king," meaning they immediately made him a king, because he certainly deserves the reign. And so it was. They took him up as king. The warrior who came against him is mentioned. And this is the warrior with whom we now go about conquering the world. But he says, the warrior who has now become king over them, that he means something else in his going about conquering the world. For he does not at all intend that the world should be under him. Rather, he means something else. All this, one of the warriors told the prayer leader, who had asked him how they joined the warrior. He answered him all this. The prayer leader asked him, "Wherein is the strength of the warrior who is now your king?" He answered him, "Inasmuch as there was a country that did not want to submit themselves under him, the warrior took his sword, which he has, and his sword has 3 powers. When it is lifted, all the officers flee." He recounted the 3 powers explained above, which the king's warriors got his strength, as mentioned. When the prayer leader heard this, he realized that this is certainly the king's warrior mentioned above. The prayer leader asked if it were possible to be granted an audience with the warrior who is their king. They answered him, it must be announced for approval, Mel Divin, before him. They went and announced, and he summoned that he should come in, and the prayer leader came in to the warrior. When he came into him, they recognized each other, and there was a very great rejoicing amongst them that they merited to be reunited. And there was rejoicing and crying, happiness and weeping between them. And for they recalled the king and his men. They cried over that. Therefore, between them was rejoicing and crying. The prayer leader began to discuss with the warrior how it came about that they arrived here. The warrior told the prayer leader that from the time that there was the storm wind, when they all became dispersed, when he returned from where he went to renew his power, and did not find the king with all his people, as mentioned, he then let himself go wherever he would go. And he passed by them all, that is, he understood he was at the place where the king is and where all his people are. That is, he was at a certain place, and he understood that the king is certainly there, in this place. However, he was unable to seek and find him. And similarly, he passed by another place, understanding that the queen is certainly there. However, he was unable to seek and find her, and thus he passed by all the king's people. Only you I did not pass by. The warrior who was telling this, said the prayer leader, that he passed by all the places of all the people, only the place of the prayer leader he did not pass by.